simple. Since we have regular meetings, the members of Microsoft management, they attend these meetings. So there are opportunities where you can have a 1:1 relationship with the Microsoft people and really grow your business. Now, we also want to build an ecosystem of IMCP partners so that you can grow your geographical reach as well as product reach. What do we mean by that? It's really simple. Microsoft is a very large company. It has got expertise in multiple areas. However, partners cannot have expertise in all these areas. So when you partner, you can partner across geography. For example, supposing you have a office in Mumbai and you have some work or project coming up in Delhi, you could partner with a Delhi partner and execute the project. That is called as partnering across geography. Second is partnering across competency. For example, you are a systems integrator. You offer complete solutions to your customers. However, your level of expertise may not be of extremely high order. In that case, what you will do is that you will essentially partner with an expert. Let's say you have a Microsoft.NET project. So you will partner with a partner who is focused on .NET and deliver a great high quality .NET solution to your customer. This is the meaning of partnering across competencies. So IMCP does help partners partner across competencies and geographies. And we also aim to build this community across India so that people can really partner in every nook and corner of the country. Now, what are the objectives and aims of IMCP in this fiscal year? Number one is we want to enable the partners in 4 key pillars. These pillars are cloud, mobility, productivity, and platforms. Why these 4 pillars? Because you must be aware that Microsoft is changing dramatically. It has, in last 12 months, it has really changed a lot. The new vision of Microsoft is cloud first, mobile first. And also, it has been stated very clearly by the CEO of Microsoft that Microsoft is a productivity and a platforms company. So what we are going to do is we are going to take these 4 pillars of cloud, mobility, productivity, and platforms, have various sales and technical sessions around these 4 platforms so that partners are in sync with the new Microsoft vision and the Microsoft products and solutions. That is objective in terms of enablement. Second objective obviously being that we want to act as a platform by which partners can partner with the experts in these 4 platforms. So very clearly, we have set ourselves a target that these are the 2 key focus areas as far as IMCP is concerned in India. So I want you to come and be a part of this dynamic ecosystem. What you see on the slide here are certain contact details. So if you need any further information, you can just drop a mail to the email ID which is given here. And we also have listed out our Facebook, Yammer, and LinkedIn details so that it becomes very easy for you to talk to us and find out how this platform can be of use to you. Thank you very much. Now I would hand over the proceedings to my friend Bapi Chakravarti from Microsoft Global Support Team. Bapi is going to talk and give you a very detailed presentation, and he's going to show you how Azure can work for you. Let me hand over the details to Bapi. Over to you, Bapi.
Thank you very much, Suresh. I really appreciate that nice introduction of mine, and I'm really thrilled and excited to really present in front of all our different partners here today and on this nice platform of ours wherein we are going to see a nice collaboration effort. I'm really excited about it. I hope everybody can hear me, just in case you have a challenge. I see Bakul has a problem there. Um, so today I'll go ahead and present to you a few workloads on Azure, which is one of the key workloads or one of the key workloads, I would say, and can help our customers to really go into uh, to the new cloud world, right? In today's discussion, we will also focus on some of the key aspects, how you can really activate your partner benefits as being a Microsoft partners and what you really get being a Microsoft partner. And after that, we'll look into a technical aspect, how you can go ahead and configure, install, and manage Microsoft online backup service. So let me go ahead and start with our today's discussion. And just in case you want to see me, that's my photograph and my email address. Of course, you want to reach out to me, you can just drop me an email with your queries, and I'll be glad to help you out on any technical queries that you might have. So our today's agenda, we'll start off with our first-hand Azure experience to see how you can activate your partner benefits. We'll go ahead and experience the backup as a service and how and what are the next steps. In this particular today's discussion, we are not only going to have a kind of a hands-on lab experience, but also will be, and I'll be sharing with you some of the very nice resources at the end of the discussion that you can go back, practice on your own, leverage the technology, and really learn about it so that when it comes to a discussion or a conversation with the customer, it really becomes much more easier for you to really understand the technology and provide our customer a very good cloud-based solution. Hence, it is utmost important for everybody to really understand are the benefits of this particular technology, in which kind of scenarios we can really enable that particular technology, how can we manage it, and what are we going to get out of it. So I'll try to make it very simple, crisp, and also useful. In case you think that you want to have a much more detailed discussion, we can connect back offline as well, or in other forums that we might be having, and then we can pick it up from there. Towards the end, we'll be talking about 4 different workloads. I mentioned it as a 4 workloads of the day. One is an extended data center, backup, amazing dev test environment, and simple disaster recovery as a service. So these are going to be kind of an overview so that when you have your customer conversation and you understand that there is an opportunity that the customer is looking for some other kind of a solution, probably you can propose them as well to our customer so that they can understand and find out the best suitable option for them and leverage the technology at the same time. Now, to start with, our first Azure experience to really activate. If you really want to go ahead and activate the partner benefits, you have 2 different URLs that you can really utilize. The first one is what we call it internal usage rights. That is the link aka.ms/activate IUR, that what you can use. Or you can alternatively go to microsoft.com/msppdd, and when you go ahead and log into that particular portal using your organization ID as a partner, you'll be able to activate that. So there is a very nice and very clearly stated video. I'll try to play the video for you as well, and it is uploaded to YouTube as well, presented on that particular link. Before we go there, as part of being Microsoft partners, in different competency levels, you get a specific dedicated Azure credit in your account so that you can utilize it for your own demonstration learning purposes, and also to showcase it to your customers. Azure as an Action Pack subscriber, you get $100 a month. For MPN competency partners, you can get around $100 a month again. For BSpark, it goes up to $150. And if you have on top of it Azure Visual Studio subscription, right, with the different levels of Visual Studio subscription, it varies from $50 to $150 a month. This particular size of the credit that you get is very, very good enough, even for your own personal utilization and learning purposes, to really go back and utilize them, deploy different kind of an environment, and really learn it to the best possible way. Right. So let us go ahead and take a look how you can really activate your the benefits on a very high level steps. If you have to really sign up for this particular experience, you can go ahead and log into your partner digital download site at mspartners.microsoft.com, and you can uh, locate the software and online services location, and from there you need to select Microsoft Azure, and then you follow the special instructions from here on. There is a KB article, KB number 2887467, wherein you can really go ahead and look through the different details of all the benefits and how to activate. Let me do this. Let me share my desktop so that you can really see what I'm talking about here. I hope you can see my screen now. So let me do this. Let me just pull up quickly here the link. And this is the KB article I was talking about. And this is very nicely documented. What are my internal usage rights benefits? Why are they important to me to use? And this has a complete introduction. So let me play this video in case you have difficulty in hearing this. You can anyway go back to this particular KB article 2887467. Right. So I hope that helps. Um, oh, so you couldn't hear it. Can everybody hear me now? At least, can you hear what I'm? Okay, so I think that video didn't play well. All right. Okay, I think that video didn't play well. I'm sorry for that, but looks like the audio didn't pass through. Anyway, let me go ahead and move ahead on that whole presentation rather. So I'm not gonna present the slide anymore there. I'm gonna use this desktop sharing and move through the slides rather and talk about it. There is another link at the bottom of that page wherein it talks about how to activate Azure related Azure specific subscriptions. If you go down on that same KB article, there is an option wherein you can really activate Azure subscription for your internal use rights. Right? It's pretty step by step. On top of it, there is one very nice document that I'll share, of course, with Suresh, and he will provide it to you as well. I'm not sure if every one of you has really had a chance to really go through it, wherein this particular product usage guide really talks about what are the different benefits you get for each kind of a subscription that you are that are available to you, right? So it gives a complete detail of different tenants and different benefits that you have. This is a very nice guide. I'm going to go ahead and share with you and Suresh so that he can forward it further to every one of you here, right? So what are the maximum licenses and how can you share the licenses, license entitlements? This is a very nice guide that talks about each and every part of it. Okay, with that, let us move on to our the most interesting topic of the day as of now, which is Azure Backup in a technical aspect, right? What really Azure Backup is all about. I'm sure some of you would have already used Azure Backup so far and would have experienced some hands-on. But in case you have not, this is the right place to be in. And if you want to go back and start working on it, this particular session and the discussion that we are going to have from here on is going to really help you really follow up through it. Azure Backup is basically a very simple to use and simple to integrate with your existing System Center management application so that you can back up your on-premises workload or your Azure workload onto Azure, right? It's kind of a off. It's a kind of a the, offsite storage that most of the organization really want for any kind of a backup. So if you look at the whole backup cycle, how does it really work? Somebody is going to define what are the critical workloads to be protected, right? Once that is defined, the administrator will get an instruction to really decide as to what are the critical workloads and in what schedule that has to be backed up. Once the data is backed up, it is backed up in different ways depending on the cost and the criticality. Some of the data which are required to be on premises, they save it on the disk or on the tape libraries. And for the most critical workloads, as a disaster recovery plan as well, or as a business continuity plan, those are again shift to an offsite location. The transportation cost, the human charges, the labor charges, the different kind of transactional charges come into the picture. In today's world of cloud, it has become very, very easy to really send across your whole set of data onto offsite location over the wire or over some other technological ways that you can really save your data onto a very nice secure location and you can download them whenever you need. And that is why the Azure Backup plays a very key role here. And we have come up with different ways to really implement backup onto Azure. The benefit that any customer gets is a 99.9% availability on SLA on Azure Backup data and reliable and offsite backup target. What else could be nice to really save a data which is available in India on premises to saved on Singapore or another location, let's say, which is miles away, hundreds and thousand miles away if you want to. And it is completely secure, encrypted in transit, and is a completely safe, bet to be saved at any location. And it is also available to be saved with an advanced and a critical workload like Hyper-V or SQL Server. And you can also use a geo-replicated backup store for your backups as well, so that in case of a disaster recovery at one particular location, you still have an off-site location storage wherein your backups are saved at least 400 miles away from that geolocation. So to further to that, if you look at the whole cycle, how these backups have been released, right? It started all with October 2013, wherein we did an initial release. In August 2014, we have increased the data size of the Azure backup up to 1.67 terabytes. And this is basically a data source size I'm talking about, the source data volume. At one point of time, it was up to 850 GB. The registration process has been very simplified. When I go through the steps, you will really understand it's very simple to configure. And the backups can be retained up to 9 long years. There was a time when we only used to save it for 30 days for a short-term backup plan. And it was very difficult to really save it for a longer duration. Now with Azure Backup, with the new updates which are coming in, you can really save your data up to 9 years with 120 recovery points altogether. After that, in October 2014, we have added the support for a backup agent with a 64-bit version of Windows Server 2008 with Service Pack 2. And these are the relevant support articles that I have mentioned in the additional information section on the presentation as well. And this particular information is also available on Microsoft documentation page. If you go to Microsoft documentation page, it really talks about all the different benefits of Azure Backup. If you have to back up to the cloud, it is with zero capital investment. You do not have to buy any additional hardware to really save it, and also it's minimal operational expense. And with a little bit of a learning curve, it's very nominal rather than really understanding how tape libraries work, how you are supposed to integrate the tape libraries and install the media firmware upgrade, and how you want to protect your physical server and everything onto on a physical server, right? That's a bit of a change there, a whole lot of a difference. And then you want to really understand the Azure Backup. It's a very simple and reliable data protection solution that you can, on few clicks, you can configure your data to be protected on Azure. The interface is very familiar. If you have worked on Windows Server Backup or DPM, you will easy to work on. It will be very easy to really work on Azure Backup as well. It's just a small component that very easily integrates with the same with the same Windows Server Backup and Data Protection Manager. We'll talk about in a while about it. How do you do that? The other part of the benefits, which include secure and very reliable location with a 99.9 service availability, and it's very efficient and flexible. So Azure Backup is efficient in the way that it works over the network and also on your disk, depending on what kind of a backup plan that you want to create. Once the initial seeding is complete, only incremental changes are sent to the defined frequency that you define, right? And everything is very inbuilt with respect to the compression, encryption,
Hello.
and the longevity and the retention period.
Hello, sir.
I'm sorry, I think I'll have to mute everybody. It's kind of a background noise out there. All right. If you have any doubts or questions, feel free to use the IM or the chat window that is available. Between my discussion, I'll pick up those questions. If not possible during the discussion, I'll go ahead and pick up those questions towards the end of our total, the session, and Of course, you can always connect with me so that I can always answer your questions, right? Okay, so if you look at the overall backup, earlier days were the days when we used to define different kind of plans. Full backup on a Sunday and incremental backups or a differential backup different times of the day, and that too depending on the kind of workload that is available on a data center. However, with Azure Backup, it is very simple. By default, only the first time we make the full backup, the rest of the time it is only the delta changes. And it always makes sure with the different recovery points that you create, you have all the different instances of the same data always available. So it's not at all complex to really think and remember what are the different schedules for it. So it's by default it does a full backup, and then it only replicates the delta changes. It only seeds the delta changes onto Azure. Now let us take a look at the how does it really work out altogether, right? How can really Windows Server Backup really integrate with your on-premises? There are certain considerations when you talk about it. You can use Azure Backup to back up a content which is stored on an NTFS fixed volumes only. If it is on a network share, it's not going to help. It's not going to work. And there are certain situations wherein you cannot use them. It's very, very critical for us to really understand how it works so that when you go back and have a discussion with your customer, you really understand that, okay, you know what, this customer has a BitLocker or any other drive encryption software that keeps the volume as locked, and the Azure backup will not be able to back up that particular volume as such. Right. The second part is the volume has to be formatted with NTFS. That is how it is designed. And the drive type, if it is not fixed, if it is a network share, you cannot really back up a network share using Azure Backup. If the volume is read-only, or if the volume is not currently online, of course, in both the situations, there are different kind of backup softwares out there which really does different ways to really back up your volume. And that updating it to a backup store. As of today, there are certain considerations for Azure Backup, and the read-only volumes and offline volumes are not a good candidate for taking Azure Backup. Right. So what are the quick steps to really configure Azure Backup? It's very simple, as I said. Just you have to create a backup vault, download the vault credentials, or upload a certificate. There was a time when we had to upload a certificate from the server that we are planning to back up, right? What really happens is whenever you are trying to upload a data, the target source has to be authenticated at Azure, and to authenticate the source, it uses a certificate, and the certificate has to be uploaded to Azure. So there has been a couple of changes, and what we said, let's make it very simple. Let us provide the credential downloadable to the server on which you are really planning to take the backup from. So we created this vault credentials, and it has all the parameters that is required to really trust the source. And you download the vault credentials, download and install the backup agent, and register your server. So when you register your server, you point that particular agent to the backup vault certificate, right? And then configure backup settings the way you want it, when you want it. You schedule it up. You want every Monday, every weekdays, every weekends, in a month, in a year. You schedule it up, and then manage the vaults and the servers. So these are very, very high level and also very simple steps that you can use to back up your workload, right? So let me show you a very quick demo. How can you do that? So this is my Azure portal, Microsoft Azure portal. When you log on to Microsoft Azure portal, you have an option, something called recovery services, right? And the recovery services offer two different kind of vaults primarily. One is your backup vault. So it's vault kind of a locked up location wherein you can save your data. You can save your backup targets. Your protected items is the right terminology to use here. So we use something called protected items, what we call inside a backup vault. So the first one that you see in a vault, right? This is the one which is backup vault. The second one is for my disaster recovery, about which we'll take up in another discussion session though. But how do you really do that? So all it requires is to just click on new, recovery services under data service, and you create a backup vault. When you click on a backup vault, you need to give it a name. Let's say and I give the location, let's say Southeast Asia, and I say create vault. Now it is creating my backup vault onto which my data is going to get saved. So what it really does at the background is it's really creating a blob storage available for you, and it is associating it with your subscription and making sure that you can use it in a very protected manner and marking it in a way that it is a backup vault. It is not just a regular backup storage, or it's just not a regular vault, or it's just not a regular blob storage wherein you can save your data, right? So if I click on that particular backup vault right now, you will see that it's very easy, and it just really talks about it, how you can really implement it, right? This is a very beautiful part of Azure. Everything is on the screen. You just have to click around. It has very simple 2 steps. The first step, it says you have to download the vault credentials. Once you download the vault credentials, if you do not register that particular server, this particular credential is going to get expired in after 2 days, right? The second step is you need to download the appropriate agent for configuring the Azure Online Backup. Now, Azure Online Backup, there are 2 different agents. The first agent is your System Center Data Protection Manager, Windows Client, which means Windows 8 machines, and also Windows Server. So if you have a file server which has a locally attached storage and you want to really back up the data from there, you can just simply use a Windows Server backup agent, and it is the same agent, right, for all these 3 different kind of different types of systems. The fact is that depending on the type of system, it integrates with that specific component, right? So for Windows Server, Windows Client, and System Center Data Protection Manager, it is the same agent. There is another agent for Windows Server Essentials. This is a different agent altogether that you can download and install and integrate into Windows Server Essential backup services. All right. So there are 2 different steps, and what we really need to do here is, if I have to back up a specific server, right, I just have to go ahead and just have to download this particular vault. Now, let me show you real quick here. So this is one of my Hyper-V servers, wherein I have a couple of servers which is running, right? And there are other servers as well which is available. So let me just pick up this server here, node 2. Let me go ahead and log into the server. Let me go ahead and download the vault. Just to keep it in a test lab bed environment kind of a scenario. So here I'm logging on onto the Azure to download the Vault so that it's very easy for me to really, instead of downloading it somewhere and also transferring it to another location. I think I do have a question. Yes, absolutely. We can get, yes. All right. So let me log in with my passport. Because of the virtual machine routing, it's kind of a slow over here. And never mind. All right. In the meanwhile, it really downloads and logs me in. Let me show you what exactly it does here. So when I go ahead and log in to the same portal, right, and I downloaded the Vault credentials. Okay, let me go to the credentials here and let me download the Vault credentials. So it's generating the Vault credentials for IMCP. It should have been, but anyway, never mind. IACMP here, and I'm gonna go ahead and save it. And let me save it to my downloads folder. And once this is completed, right, all I have to do is to download this agent. So I click on that particular agent, save, and I download this agent, right? Once this particular agent is installed, right, it will ask me, do I want to register this particular server, right? Do I have to register this particular server with you know with the Azure Vault, right? So it's now downloading it. Looks like a routing problem out there. Never mind. So it's downloading here, MSRA agent. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel it for now, right? And I'm gonna show you how it really looks here. So I usually go ahead and download this agent, right? And I go ahead and run the agent. And when the agent runs, Yeah, so it says it installed and registered because it already identified this particular machine is already registered onto Vault. Now, ideally, what it really runs here is it runs the whole program and it says, you know what, you want to register, what is the Vault credential, and it asks for the Vault credential, and I provide the Vault credential and it registers itself onto Azure. Now, if you go back here on the dashboard of my backup, you'll see that under servers tab, once the server is registered, it will show up as the server name, right? So my server name is Earth and it shows up out there. Okay, so let me do this. Let me say allow re-registration. Say yes. So how, when, what, in what situation would you use re-registration? Let's assume for some reason the the server that you are really that you are using as a file server has faulted and it died for some reason, hardware fault, no matter what you think, might just happen. So you wanted to just rebuild the server, right? And you wanted to really reuse the same server and register it with Azure. And that is when you just say allow re-registration. So this is one of the scenario which you might just come across. Now, if I go back and run this again, okay, I will have to probably uninstall it, but never mind. It goes ahead and registers it. So once it registers back with the vault credentials that was provided, right? I beg your pardon. Now you can go ahead and run the Azure Backup tool. So you can either run it from your Windows Server Backup that it really integrates with. So either you do not really have to install the complete Windows Server Backup. You can just install the agent and it is going to create this particular console so that you can manage your backup on the server, right? Once it is done, right, you can go ahead and say, schedule my backup. And if you see here on this particular console, it really says available recovery points, and it gives me an option to see view details. And there is one particular recovery point that I have. So if I click on it, it is going to tell me which particular volume that I'm really backing up. So if I say schedule backup, I can schedule a backup or I can delete an existing recovery point. Now, in this case, I can say I want to make changes to the backup items or the times that I have, or I can just stop using the backup and delete all sort of backups that I have on store, right? Or you want to add or activate a different schedule. You want to just stop this backup schedule and you want to keep all the backups available and then activate it again at a later time. So if I just have to say, just for making sure that we are going through this particular complete wizard and understand it better, I'll say make changes, and this is where you really say, which particular server that you want to really back up with, right? And you can, just select the specific location that you want to back up here, right? And choose and say add items, and you can choose the volume that you want to back up. But you remember that we spoke about this Azure Backup, Windows Server Azure Backup is basically a server specific backup. We are not talking about another target as a backup, right? Wherever you're installing the backup, you're only backing up that server, a local fixed disk from there, right? Not a network storage, right? So you're backing up a specific server only, right? You have to manually go ahead and install this particular agent on all the servers wherever you want to take backup from, and register each and every server onto Azure the same way, right? You have to download the Vault credentials, download the agent, run the agent. Once the agent is installed, it will say I have to register the server, and when you register the server, you have to provide that particular Vault credential as a path. Now, once it is done, right, you can just choose what particular workload that you want to really back up, right, and then go next. Now here, this is where you really specify the retention in number of days, right? Whether you want to retain for next 33,000 days, All right, you want to take a synchronization frequency every day or weekly. If you do weekly, then you can say synchronize every week on which particular day and what particular hour. Right? So this is where you really specify how frequently that you want to really back up this data, the volume that you are choosing, right? And if you say daily, then you can want to see which particular available time and a scheduled time that you really want to back up this stuff, right? Now you would see that when you go to the number of days, you can back up. I'll just show you a quick calculation later on the discussion, wherein you can really specify up to 9 years altogether with a specific policy, saying that I want to back up every week, and every week, and one backup recovery point with with a specific retention time period, right? You can go up to 9 years altogether. Right? Once it is done, you can click on finish. Now, before you click on finish, there is one option that says change properties, right? What does it really mean? It means that you want to change how this backup is taken place and what kind of a security lock that you want to put when this backup is really shifted to Azure. By default, you can either say generate a passphrase, right? Or you can specify your own passphrase. So that this particular passphrase would be used to lock the whole data, kind of a vault with a super secret password or a super secret key or a PIN. And Microsoft has no access to this data either. It will be encrypted completely and shipped to that vault, right? You can change the passphrase if you want. And if you are using a proxy configuration for your own enterprise infrastructure or any kind of a small infrastructure that you have, you want to specify the proxy configuration, you will have to do that as well with the username and password that is appropriate. And if you want to enable internet bandwidth throttling for backing up operations, right, you can specify and say, you know what, upload the data at so and so schedule from this hour to this hour, this many days a week. That really helps to really optimize the complete backup process and until the data is completely onto Azure, right? So when you really run a backup, you just say, if you want to run it manually, right, you just can say backup now, choose the location and say backup. And it will go ahead and start the backing up process, snapshot the disk location or the file location, and the data is going to pull down, it is going to pull up the data from that particular location, and it will create that storage target location that you have, and then it is going to back up the whole content of the data onto Azure. So I'll probably not spend much time on this particular screen. It is going to complete the backup. Once the backup is done, right, once the backup is complete, it is going to verify the backup for consistency as well. Once data is complete, right, it is going to say, you know what, you have, okay, you can see on the screen, it is now doing a verifying backup, right, and it has transferred some amount of data, right, and it is done, and the verification will be complete, right. Done. Backup is done completely, but this is a very small demonstration, right? So it is very quick. But probably depending on the size of the data and the size of network that you have, the connection that you have, probably it might take the time would vary, and that is why you would like to schedule it off business hours, a specific time, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at it, the last backup that was taken, and it gives me the total backups to and total recovery point, right? And it gives me the complete detail and what time was it really backed up, and it gives me the total details of the job completion, how much data was transferred. And you want to change the retention range at any point of time, you can pull down that same screen back again and change the retention range as well. Now you want to recover the data. Similarly, you can say recover data and say on this server or on another server. So if it is on another server, you need to select the vault credentials that you downloaded from that particular page, okay, and then you have to put that same another server location and specify it there. Now the fact is that whenever you download it onto another server, it's not going to restore it. It's basically just a download as a backup file and then saving it there, right? So if you are downloading on this server, you can just say next, and you can say browse for files. So I want to see what are the files which are available for me to really restore, and you can choose the volumes. If there are multiple volumes, it is going to show up. So it's basically recovering all the information from that particular volume and the date and time feature, right? It gives me that the backup was taken on 16th, right? So it gives me the available date and time, right? One of them was on 17th, on 7th of December. So if I click on that, it gives me the time. So I can choose which particular backup set that I really want to restore, right? And I say next. And then I choose the selected itemized file. I can choose with that granularity saying that which particular file is it that I really want to retrieve from the whole backup set. Once I select that file, I go ahead and say next, and it gives me all the file, right? And I can choose whether it is to original location or on another location on the same, from where it was backed up. So let's say the backup folder location was CE drive, ABC folder, and XYZ file. You can choose to restore it to C drive or a D drive on new file folder, and then save it there. And if you're saving it in the original location, you can also choose whether you want to create multiple copies and keep both the versions, or you want to overwrite, or how do you want to really do it, along with the ACL or the file permission that was associated with the file at the time it was backed up, right? So once done, you click on recover and the file is available to you again, right? So it's very, very easy steps, few steps that you can use to really back up the file. Yeah, so Vaibhav, to answer is if it is if it is to really backup specific, so the backup first time seeding is the full backup. Every time else is the incremental backup. Only the delta changes it is done. Bakul, to answer your question, if somebody forgets the pin, you will not lose data. The challenge that you have you have an option whenever you're giving the passphrase, you can export the passphrase just like a BitLocker recovery key. You can export it and keep it on a safe location to recover it. Right? So you can do that as well. You can recover the data with this exported passphrase in case you you need to use it. Okay, let us move ahead. In that particular way, let me see if I can pull up one of the other servers. Let me close this box here. Okay, so let me go to, okay, never mind. So let me move ahead, and if I look at the overall retention calculation policy that you have here, right, and the same screen, I just worked out it, and if you see that if you can go up to 120 recovery points with a weekly backup, you can go and back up to 840 days. Similarly, with synchronize every week if you want to do multiple every week, right? You can go up to 3,360 days of retention period, and in total it comes up to around 9 years. And in terms of total retention, you have to add up, of course, the number of days for leap year as well. If you add it up, you can really go ahead and we'll come to that, Jasvinder. Just give me a minute. I'm so happy to see you are all excited about it. So yeah, so you can really go ahead and do that as well. So if it is that is how you really define the retention period, and you can go up to the number of days and the number of recovery points accordingly. Now there is a couple of deployment guidance that I would like to share as well. With respect to installation prerequisites, of course, if it is a DPM or data protection manager virtual machine specific, and you make sure the virtual network of the virtual machine to be protected as well. So make sure it is in the same network. And domain, if it is a specific domain, the DPM device or the machine is available, the domain of the VM should it should be in the same domain where your virtual machines are to be protected as well. So in case you have a multiple DPM servers, you will have to use something for a consolidated reporting and consolidated management. You will have to use SCOM to do that. But it is preferred that you have the DPM servers in the same domain for the workload that you are protecting as well. Prefer to use a storage account for DPM virtual machine storage as well. Have a dedicated storage. Do not couple it with other items that you are protecting, a file server or a SQL server and so on and so forth. And if you are using, so recently we announced DPM server. Let's say if you have workload on Azure, you have a file server, you have some development server on Azure and some application server, and you want to back up those servers as well. Specific to DPM, again, this one, if you want, you can use Windows Server backup, same way that I demonstrated here. Download the vault, download the agent, install the agent, and point it to the vault credential so that it registers itself with Azure Vault. You can use Windows Server backup, or if you prefer to use DPM, you can have a DPM server also as an IaaS implementation, infrastructure as a service. You can have a virtual machine on Azure, install DPM on it. This was released, I think, around a month back or so. I don't remember on top of my head, but it was very recent. And you can also protect your machines on Azure using DPM, which are hosted out of Azure, right? Isn't that beautiful? So you can use your own license mobility to run DPM on Azure as a VM as well. Okay, now what are the workloads that you can really support? I think that will answer Jaswinder's question. Workload, the workload and the version should be supported on Azure, first of all, like Windows Server 2008, R2 and 2008, 2012 and all. The support metrics for the workloads are Windows Server, yes. SQL Server, yes. Exchange Server, not supported by Azure. So in the private cloud, you have to have your backups. SharePoint, yes. Now, onto that, there is a complete DPM specific support metrics that you have, right? If you want to download, you can download on this link, aka.ms.ar1_DPM support metrics. You can download that. You can go through that step to see what are the DPM support metrics. On Azure or Azure Online Backup supports the three specific file types or the backup types. One is a file backup formatted on NTFS. Second one is a virtual machine backup. The third one is your SQL backup. These are the three types of backup that you can do onto Azure. These are the three work types only, right, primarily. But using DPM, you can do a whole lot. I mean, as long as you have that backup that you have done as a file on DPM server, so that particular file can be again backed up onto Azure. I think there is a question out there. I think probably there is a network problem at your end. I hope others are having no challenges. So I'll continue, and of course the recording will be shared. All right, great guys. All right, so now so far we have spoken about the Windows Server. Let's talk about DPM part of it, right? How does DPM make a difference here? Now, some time back I was working on DPM, and this is a very interesting part. So those who are really using DPM for the very first time may experience this sort of problems. Make sure that you have my demonstration will primarily assume that you are not a first-time DPM user. You are already probably using it for a long time, or probably have some good experience on configuring DPM. But in case you are not, and you are really wanted to try it out yourself, see how, just for the Azure backup, how it works, I'll just talk about it, of course, and then showcase you as well. But there are other guides about which I'll talk in a while. But there are two different aspects when you really talk about DPM. First of all is your SQL Server. Make sure you read this DPM Server 2012 R2 prerequisites very well online at Microsoft TechNet sites, so that you are not getting into different error messages. right? DPM does a good amount of prerequisites check and tries to connect to the SQL server. Okay, this is something that I had taken a look at some time back, right? And I had this kind of a screenshots for my, I have this tendency to keep screenshots whenever I'm stuck sometime, right? So I have this kind of a screenshots wherein I got stuck in multiple places just because I did not have that much of expertise in DPM. Right, so you should make sure that you have this right version of SQL Server installed. You have the SQL Server properly configured to access the DPM workload. You should make sure that the SQL Server agent is running on the SQL Server properly in the browser service, of course, so that the DPM server can browse to it and really identify it as a SQL Server, and of course the required ports which should be open. Right, you should make sure that everything is installed and configured correctly, and SQL Server services are also configured at the proper way. Right, so go through the prerequisites. I shall absolutely share with you all the documentations online, but we'll not get into that sort of discussion. But this is kind of a heads up just in case you are doing it for the first time. Now, let me assume that you are already having a DPM infrastructure, and how can you really integrate Azure Backup into it, right? So there are two different scenarios here, right? If you already have a DPM wherein you are also backing up workloads, Microsoft workload running on VMware platform, right? That is one scenario. The other scenario is wherein you are really backing up Microsoft workload from a cloud kind of a scenario, wherein you have a DPM server which is running inside a VM on Azure, and you are backing up the different virtual machines which are running in different cloud services in Azure, right? You have different you have different scenarios, right, depending on which you want to do that. So in both the scenarios, this is the key aspect everyone should remember, is that you should not back up on-premise you should not back up a on-premise workload from a DPM server which is being hosted on Azure. You should have a dedicated DPM server for on-premise and a dedicated DPM server for Azure. Even if you have a site-to-site connectivity using which you can really have a secure tunnel created, you should not use, because there may be a very good amount of latency in communication over the public internet, even if you have a very good pipe or probably VPN set up that way. Right? Keep these two things isolated. If you are backing up on-premises infrastructure using DPM, do not use the same DPM to back up your Azure infrastructure, and vice versa. I think there is a question. Yes, possible. So if you are backing up SQL Server, you can also, let's say if you are using DPM, so what happens with the way the DPM works is, right, it also creates a local replicated copy. So you'll have the data replicated available on the DPM server, and that is when it is going to upload it to Azure as offsite backup, of course, right? So you have this particular scenario wherein you are actually uploading the data, whether it is a SQL Server database or it is a Hyper-V workload, a virtual machine, right? You can back up those data, save it onto the DPM server as a local storage, and then for long-term retention as an offsite storage, you can have Azure as a target location to save that data. Right, so you have both the scenarios, whether it is on premises or on Azure. Using DPM, you can do both. Right? Okay, so much for it, and let me just talk about quickly. Let's say if you have rebuilt the server, how can I connect back to the same recovery point? That is one of the question, and that is where I showed you that in case you have rebuilt earlier the server and you want to really recover your want to connect to the same recovery point on Azure, you can initiate that, re-register the server, right, on Azure I showed you, and you can run the same agent, because it is a already rebuilt server, or you have refurbished it completely. You have to install the agent again and point it to the vault so that you can go ahead and connect to the same recovery point. Now there are different DPM deployment scenarios. One is a DPM deployed as a physical server on premises or on a virtual machine, right? With System Center 2012 SP1 and System Center 2012 R2. In both cases, supported workloads are backup. You can backup files, folders, shares. You can backup Hyper-V virtual machines, and you can backup SQL Server databases. And there are different versions for, let's say, file folders and shares. You can have 2012 R2, 2012. So anything which is above 2012, 2008 onwards preferably, and with the 2003 server, of course, with DPM 2012 R2 with the rollup update 2, right? You should make sure you have the rollup update 2. And similarly for 2008 R2, 2008 R2 and 2008 SP2. On top of it, DPM which are deployed on Azure virtual machine, right? Similar kind of a workload it can support as long as the actual target workload is also supported by Azure. Like in case of Azure, you would see that Windows Server 2003 is not supported, so you cannot back up any data, right, from 2003, of course, because Azure doesn't support it. You don't have the VM either, right? So let us go ahead and take a look at one of the DPM server and how does it look. So let me go ahead and connect to my DPM server here. Okay. Okay, so when you have the DPM server, right? So let me do this. Let me open up this console, DPM server console. I'll give you 3 easy steps that you can start doing today if you are a newbie here. So the first thing that you really need to do, right? You need to make sure that you have all the required storages available. So make sure if you are doing it on a virtual machine, right? You can go ahead and install the virtual machine on a Hyper-V server and assign some disks to it, right? So when you assign some disk, you can assign, let's say, I can show you here real quick. Let me just refresh this guys real quick. When you assign some disk, right, you can really go ahead and assign a disk. In this case, I just assigned one 15 GB and one 200 GB, but these are all dynamically expanding though, just for the lab purposes, right? And then the next step would be to add the disk to the DPM. So when you click on disk, it is not showing up any disk because I do not have any available disk here. Ideally, it would show up here as an available disk. Okay, so when I have this available disk here, I'll just click on add and click on OK. Remember, you can have the disk here type as GPT and a dynamic, but do not format or create any volumes on that particular disk. Okay, the DPM will do it all by itself, right? That's the behavior, how DPM works. You are not supposed to go ahead and create a volume. You can format, you can initialize the disk so that it gets the disk signature. You can just convert the disk type as GPT dynamic, but do not create any volume. Now once that is done, once this is done, right, you have the disk and it is added fine without any problems, and then you go ahead and click on agents. So in this case, what we are trying to do is we are trying to push the DPM agent to my protected workloads. I'm trying to protect a workload or a server. I need to push the DPM agent so that DPM can go ahead and talk to the server, pull out what needs to be done, and install the DPM agent on it. So I say agents and I say install. I say install agent, say next, and I choose the server that I need to protect, right? And when I click on a specific server, right, so I already have servers. I'm not going to go through the whole process. So all it needs is that it just asks for the credentials. Let's say I'll just say this guy here, and you would see that the moment I chose this guy, the next stage it is going to authenticate and ask for the credential that will be used to connect to that, right? So it is going to say, let me give the credentials. And say next. Now it is going to check if any clustering is present. Now it is interesting. Clustering was configured on these nodes, G node 1, and it has identified its partner. okay, because there is one cluster name as well. So it has identified, and I can say, you know what, go ahead and install this particular agent on both the nodes, right? Once it is done, it will ask me, choose the restart method. Do you want to restart now, or you want to restart once the DPM agent is installed and you want to manually install it? So that is pretty much about it. Once the agent is installed, you can come back here and you'll be able to see the different machines on which the agents are available, right? And it says it categorizes in protected computers with protection agent and unprotected computers with protected agent. What does it really mean is that protection agent is basically nothing but the DPM agent which is installed on these machines, right? And it is an unprotected mode because I have not selected any workload out of these boxes. On SQL VM on-prem, I have selected a specific folder. Though the name is SQL, it is just a folder that I'm just going to demonstrate to you instead of a real SQL database, but that is also possible. Excuse me. Now, if I have to really do it, what I can do easily is the next part of it is I need to create a specific protection group to say who are the boxes that I'm going to back up using DPM, right? So what I have to do is to click on new and say next, choose the servers or clients, say next, and choose the servers, right? So I had similarly chosen servers here. So if I chose this particular cluster, right, it is going to give me all the resources inside that cluster, right? So this node 21, okay, node 21 and node 33 are a Hyper-V cluster in this case. And the cluster name is class 338045. It's a cluster. I beg your pardon. And these are the different cluster resources which are available, right? So if I choose a specific node, let's say I choose node 1, right? So this is the node as a cluster that I can really really back up, right, as an online backup, right? This node 1. So I'll go ahead and choose this particular node here, and here I have an option to create a new protection group. I want a short-term protection using disk. That means it is going to store the data locally on the Hyper-V server, and in addition to that, I want online protection. Now you would ask, how did this come? But the tape is not available. The reason is tape is not available because there is no tape libraries installed. But for this online protection, I need to go ahead and do the same exact steps that I did on a file server or a normal server. What I need to do, go to the same Azure portal, download the file. This is what I did, and it is available. I downloaded the file, I downloaded the backup vault, and it was installed. Same way, right? Sorry. So once it was installed, let me see here. Once it is installed, right, you will be able to really go ahead and create a backup point for it. So once this option is installed, you can go ahead and say, go to management and say online. When you click on online, you can say register. Okay. Once the agent is installed, you click on register, and you need to give the same option. Say, if I have a proxy, I do not have a proxy here. So I'll skip next, and I give the vault credential. Similar prompt will come when you're doing on a file server or a normal server backup as well. So I click on browse and provide the vault credentials, which is in the downloads, right? This guy here. Click on open. So let me do that. Let me just walk you through this screen. Right? It put the vault credential, and it also identified my subscription. So this is the subscription ID that I have on my Azure, and the region and everything. Then similar kind of bandwidth throttling you want to do, or you want to say how do you want to save, which particular folder you want to use as a recovery folder setting. So temp recovery location is wherein it will be use as a, it will use the DPM will use as a temp recovery location, right? And then it can use same kind of a passphrase. So you can generate a passphrase, right? And you can copy to clipboard and save it for your own purpose, and then click on register. Once the server is registered, right, you will be able to see the server on portal under servers. Okay, for the DPM, it will show up like this. Fair enough. Now, after that, let's say I'm going to also implement the backup for a particular workload, which was my for this file server that I'm trying to back up. Let's say the file name is C drive DPM backup, right? So you can go ahead and choose the location that you want to really back up on that server, right? And once it is done, you remember wherein I chose that I want online backup as well. So if you do that, this is going to continue. And after that, if you want to do a manual backup as well, right, you can do a manual backup as well for that particular protection group. So if I want to do a resume, online backup, I can do that. I can just resume the online backup. It is if it did not complete, or I can say, you know what, I want to create and do a backup on that. Or I can say create a recovery point. When I say create a recovery point, I can either choose a disk or I say online protection. So when I say online protection, the same recovery point that was available, right, after synchronizing will be updated to Azure, and it is going to update onto Azure, right? So either you can schedule it up or you can do it manually depending on how you want to do it, right? Whether you want to really back up, you want to back up a new server as a file server, or you want to back up a virtual machine or a SQL server, right? Depending on that server type, you can back up a database, SQL Server database, or a Hyper-V workload like a virtual machine that I showed to you, or a file server. So once that is done, once the backup is uploaded, similar way to Azure, right, you will be able to see it here on the Azure under protected items, right? You will be able to see that the file is uploaded here like this, right? Using the temporary location, right, with the replicated storage, and it is available, the E drive, right? And the backup will continue. And of course, if you want to really restore it back, you always have the option to recovery, go to the recovery points and then choose the recovery point that you want to synchronize or restore the backup as well. So you can see all the recovery points that was taken for that C drive there, right? It gives me the complete name here, all the protected volumes that I have with the date and time, right? And I can just say recover. It will give me the date and time, and I can just continue to recover either at the original location or at an alternate location. So that is how it really works out. It's very simple, easy to use. If you're very used to DPM, it's nothing. Just have to install and download the agent vault credential, register the DPM server, and start protecting your workloads onto Azure. Offsite recovery, offsite storage, and recover whenever you need it, right? With the good amount of retention period that you have, with the good amount of recovery points that is available, you can back up 3 different types of workloads here: file, virtual machine, and SQL databases, right? Okay, so I hope you liked it. If you have any additional questions, we can absolutely pick it up. Now, we'll move further after Azure backup, and we looked at the different options here, right? Wherein we can back up either using Windows Server backup or DPM backup, and what are the considerations, and what you can back up and what you cannot, and what should you do and what you should not, right? So we need to keep track of those different points. Now let us have a quick discussion on what are the other loads or workloads that you can really utilize on Azure and have it in your on the back of your mind when you are really talking to your customers. One is a development and test environment. In a development and test environment, what really happens is that you want to rapidly synchronize and deploy your workload for development and test requirement onto on-premises or any other infrastructure for that matter. The whole process is very, very tedious. You need to invest a lot of time to really procure the hardware, install the operating system, patch it, install all the required softwares, assign the rights. There's a whole lot of work to do. But if it is a completely cloud-based solution, specifically with Microsoft Azure, it's very easy to create your dev test environment. In any organization, if they are looking for SAP or any other development and test environment, it takes a long time, and you can really curtail that whole time with the development and test. And specifically for with Azure credits and the discounted hourly rates that you get with MSDN subscription, it reduces the whole cost to a very great level. If you go through the Azure, that internal usage rights and that specific costing sheet wherein the developers get a very, very good discount for using Azure. Right, so it's for a development and test environment. Azure is a very good bet because you can dynamically spin up virtual machines, start working on it, do the different kind of testing that is required, shut down the VM, or you can do auto scaling, saying that I want to shut down the VM every day after 5 o'clock or over the weekend. Right, you do not have to worry, do not have to manually shut down or anything. You can just go ahead and set up the auto schedule and you are done. You do not have to really manually do anything. It will scale down all the servers, shut down without having any kind of a compute cost impact. Right, and that is why a development and test environment is one of the very nice solutions. The second kind of a solution is wherein we talk about the hybrid storage, wherein you can use a store simple device to keep the most frequently used data on premises and keep the less frequently used data on the cloud. I'll come to that question in a while. All right, so if you want to really have some of the important useful data on premises, right, and you want to really keep those data on premises available all the while, and at the same time the less frequently used data on the cloud, you can go for a hybrid kind of a solution using Store Simple, wherein you can the inbuilt features of Store Simple is designed in such a way that it can automatically identify which data is being used frequently or which data is not frequently used and appropriately take a decision. With the storage steering, you get better benefits with the fact that you can always pin the frequently used data into the SSD storage and the less frequently data on the normal disk, SATA disk or any other disk that it implements, right? And it becomes a very good hybrid kind of a solution. Of course, if you want to really extend your data center onto SQL with a public cloud and a private cloud scenario with SQL Server 2012 and with the always-on features that you have, right? You can definitely go ahead and have a hybrid kind of a deployment scenario on premises and on Azure with the always-on feature. That is also one of the very great extend your data center kind of a concept wherein you can have your fault tolerance domain onto Azure while your actual production domain is on premises. Similarly, you can extend your data center with SharePoint as well with a site-to-site VPN connectivity with on-premises and on Azure, right? And you can really design and implement and develop your SharePoint 2010 and 2013 without any upfront hardware costs, right? You can do burst computing, storage on database, and SharePoint farm when you need it. You can just create those kind of an environment very well with Azure with the site-to-site VPN connectivity for SharePoint kind of a workload. And the last workload is something which is interesting of the day is Azure Site Recovery. And using Azure Site Recovery, you can use a virtual machine manager as a point of contact for Azure to really talk to it and maintain two different data centers of Hyper-V and do orchestrated recovery or orchestrated testing of disaster recovery scenario. Right? You can either do a disaster recovery of your physical machines onto Azure or your virtual machine onto Azure or completely disaster recovery orchestration between two different VMware sites as well. right? So we have different kind of disaster recovery scenarios covered in our Azure Site Recovery, which is a very, very interesting subject. And I hope that in upcoming discussions we can pick it up as a point of discussion and have a deep dive session on that as well. And believe me, Azure Site Recovery is one of the interesting workload for our customers as well. I have spoken to a couple of customers who are even eager to really have it and evaluate it as soon as possible. So they were asking, what is it that I have? How can I really get my on-premises workload onto Azure and test it quickly? There is something called Migration Accelerator that you can use. You can go ahead and just look about it, and if you need more assistance, you can just let me know. You can go ahead and use Migration Accelerator to really utilize and migrate your on-premises workloads onto Azure and test it out for your testing purpose. So once the complete GA is available for your physical workloads like Oracle Server disaster recovery onto Azure, or SQL Server physical servers disaster recovery onto Azure, it's yet to come. I beg your pardon. So just hold on to it, evaluate it, and then let me know how you feel and if you want to know more about it, right? So with that, we covered the 4 different workloads and Azure Backup as our key focus area of the day. Along with that, we have a couple of resources lined up. These are the resources which will help you to learn more about it and practice about it, and also to calculate different retention range in Dpm if you want to, right? Go ahead and read about it and enjoy the whole learning and Azure experience there. All right, so if you have any questions, any doubts, feel free to ask. I see that couple of IAM questions. I'm going to just stop sharing this and take up your questions. So I'll pick up Vaibhav's question. He is asking, what if I want to take Azure full backup every day in Azure? It's kind of a full backup, Vaibhav, because it is though delta changes, it is the delta changes that Azure is maintaining with the previous backup as well. So at any point of time, you have near time recovery of the complete backup. So anytime you are really recovering the data, it is the last time, and the different recovery points that you have set up, you can recover the data full backup at any point of time from that recovery point. There is a question from Bakul. If SQL database size is 15 GB every day, incremental backup of this is possible. Also, is possibility to have a copy of this data every day at another location? If is this solution only meant for enterprise, or it will be affordable to easy SME type organization? Yes. Good. Good question. I do not have a costing side of that answer covered, but if it is 15 GB or it is, let's say, 500 GB size of data, as long as you have, it's only the initial seeding which takes the longest time though, unless you really want to transport it to Microsoft Azure, load it up and do the manual seeding after that. Right, that is also available. The second part of it is wherein if you do not have a very good bandwidth, right, that might become a challenge, but you probably would like to work it around with a proper scheduling and timeline in picture. But if you really have like couple of terabytes of data every day which is changing, that I'm not sure, but depending on probably the customer infrastructure, it might really become a challenge at times. For OS imaging is something that you are looking for your virtual machine. So when you are really backing up your virtual machines, Jaswinder, you are also backing up the complete VM along with all the files. So it's primarily you are in fact it's not an image, but it is a complete VM that you are backing up altogether. So you can recover the VM and create the VM instantaneously. Physical server, when you talk about the physical server backup, it's basically a disaster recovery scenario altogether. right? So when you talk about a primarily backup, right, it is only the data section that we are talking about. But if you're talking about a server, you are primarily talking about is disaster recovery of my whole server. So that particular backup is also possible, or that kind of a disaster recovery solution is also possible using InMoj that we have acquired recently. But the whole work of integration with Azure Site Recovery is in progress. Once it is available, I'm hopeful you'll be able to do that as well. But as of today, the options that you have with disaster recovery is that you can back up or you can protect your virtual workloads onto Azure. You can protect your virtual workloads between two different Hyper-V data centers. You can protect your virtual workloads between two different VMware data center. If I'm correct, you can also protect your physical workload onto a VMware infrastructure using InMoj, but not to Azure as a target as of today. Can you have a type of costing? Yeah, so I cannot really give you a training because honestly, I'm not really a trainer or not a good trainer either. But what I can do is I can send a couple of sample wherein it might really give you a kind of idea how you can do the costing that I can do. But for that matter, will not be able to give any training as such. But I can give you some kind of a costing idea what considerations you can take to really do the costing on that. Well, Vaibhav, to pick up your question, if Azure has stopped using Azure and unsubscribed from Azure, so the moment you are unsubscribed, I do not have a direct answer to it. I'm not sure. So basically, if you're unsubscribed, you cannot really access your data. And probably I would think in a very logical manner, but I do not have a direct answer. But if I think logically, the moment you do not have the data accessibility, right? You have to again subscribe to the same with the new Azure subscription probably, right? Probably you have to talk to somebody who really provides that kind of a flexibility, but I'm not sure if that really works out very well. I do not have a direct answer to that at this point. Because if your complete subscription is expired, you are also losing all the information and configuration you have done in that. So new subscription is not really, is not really a pointer to the old subscription. It's a complete new subscription. You have a configuration. Everything is different, I hope. So if once this whole contract is expired, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to really recover it, but I don't know if there is any flexibility inside it. Yes, Bakul. Any pre-sales discussion with your customer, or you have a pre-sales technical requirement wherein you want to really help, you want really a technical help to design a solution, to really, create a solution for your customer, and you need a help, right? We'll not be able to do a complete, what is it called, complete infrastructure assessment and planning. Most of the part you will have to drive from your end, and we can always guide you with the pointers and what to do and what to look out for. But the primarily you will have to drive and get it to a conclusion. But we are here to help you out to do that. But we may not be able to really dedicatedly do the complete assessment, do the complete solutioning, and do the complete deployment. So you will be a partner in your deployment, in your designing, and your own deployment. Uh, Vaibhav, I'm not sure about that, whether Microsoft deletes it at this point of time. As I said, right? I don't have that answer at this point. Bakul, for each and everything is depending and is taken as a case-to-case basis, honestly. So depending on what particular scenario that you are in, right, the prerequisites changes. So if it is a backup, then there is something else. If it is a disaster recovery, something else. If it is on-premises stuff, then it is something else. So it is very difficult to give that. The best idea is to drop me an email, ask, okay, Bapi, I need this help. What is it that we need and how can we proceed? Probably we can pick it up from there. That is the right way as of now, honestly. It's very difficult because it's very scenario specific and very case to case basis. When you say case studies, what exactly would that mean? Oh yes, yes. But the difficulty is that it is difficult to share any customers' case studies as such. I'll not be able to do that, unfortunately. But I think the best way would be to really experience it. Connect with me offline, I would say, right? Connect with me offline. Let us talk about it, and probably we can formulate some kind of a discussion around that particular requirement. All right, sure. So Bakul, let's do that. Let's us sync up sometime today, tomorrow afternoon, right? Let us sync up sometime tomorrow afternoon and take this offline. So I would like to welcome any other questions, if you have on this particular subject that we are discussing, and we can go from there. Thank you, Subramanian. Sure, sure. You can definitely have my email address. So uh, let me just ping it to you. So if nobody else has any other question, I would like to wrap up for the day. And I would like to thank each and every one of you to really giving me this opportunity to present this great workshop today. And I would love to hear from you soon. Thank you, Suresh sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bapi, for the excellent session. It was wonderful. And I'm sure the people who took part in it would really benefit from it. Thanks a lot. Yeah.